I mean, really hard to argue with any of these. When I did my official predictions over on OilersNation.com, it was actually pretty similar to this. The only change, I had Ryan Smith on instead of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, which was tough, but I felt like they'd want to give a nod to like the older era with the first team. And then I also had Jason Smith on over Darnell Nurse.
Yes, Jason Smith, 100%.
Chris Pronger?
I didn't have Pronger on either of them.
So here's the argument for it.
I mean, most impactful defenseman we've ever had.
Totally. And I know Matthias Ekholm has played a little bit longer, but he's also not been around that long. I feel like the argument for Pronger is right there in front of you, like if you're putting Ekholm on the team. I think I would have changed Evan Bouchard out for Pronger maybe, or one of the two, whatever it would have been.
So I had no problems with any of these five, really. The second team, AB, if you want to flip to that, I think does get a little bit interesting. They went with the Horkov, Smith, and Hemsky line, which makes sense. I went 6 for 6 predicting the forwards, but granted, it was very easy.
The 6 forwards that were picked were the 6 highest scoring forwards since 2000.
Yeah, super simple. I had 3 of these 4 defensemen. The only difference was Jason Smith was on my first team. Matthias Ekholm wasn't on my list. I had Oscar Klefbom on my list.
Instead of Ekholm?
Instead of Ekholm, and I didn't have Pronger. For me, my thing was you're looking for guys who at different points kind of really represented the Oilers and stood out over the last 25 years. And for Pronger, does he, when you think of the last 25 years, as much as 06 was great and he was a big part of that, does he represent any other part of being an Oiler? Is he one of the first players that comes to mind when you think of the Edmonton Oilers over the last 25 years?
Yeah, he's connected to one of the most iconic moments in Oilers playoff history outside of hoisting the cup, and that's scoring a penalty shot goal as a defenseman, waving off everyone else on the ice saying, I got this. The Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, the reason I went with Klefbom is because he played almost 400 games. It's 6th on the list in terms of defensemen in the last 25 years, and he had big playoff moments himself. He scored that big goal. He scored 2 big goals against San Jose. Was a part of the team that brought us out of the decade of darkness. Ended up playing in even more playoff runs in the weird kind of COVID bubble years before he retired. So I had Oscar Klefbom on my team over Matthias Ekholm, just purely based off longevity. Like Ekholm, he's barely played 100 games now as an Oiler.
I know, but once again, impact to the raw. And do not take any of this commentary as slighting Oscar.
No,
Klefbom.
totally.
I love it.
And I'm not slighting Matthias Ekholm either.
I want him back right now. I wish he could still play for us. But the impact Ekholm has brought to the lineup, like that has been a complete turning point in the Oilers' journey.
Tyson Barrie, anyone?
Maybe on the Flames
Justin
quarter
Schultz?
century team? Chelsea.
Tyson Barrie did lead the NHL in points by defenseman.
I mean,
And
But that's why-
he didn't receive a Norris vote.
But that is why I didn't have like Pronger and those guys. To me, I went with some form of longevity, which brings me to who I think is the biggest snub on this list. Dwayne Rollison, played a lot of games for the Oilers, had the playoff run, didn't play in the Stanley Cup Final or played one game in the Stanley Cup Final. Not his fault.
almost a full one.
But he gets in, sure. Tommy Salo, most amount of games played by an Oilers goalie in the 25-year stretch, so I understand that. 12 playoff games. To me, Stuart Skinner had to be. If you were putting Bouchard on this list, and if you're putting Ekholm on this list, Stuart Skinner's on the list. Most games played in the playoffs by an Oilers goalie in the last 25 years. Went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. I thought Stuart Skinner deserved to be on there.
Isn't Tommy Salo, doesn't he have the most wins by a goalie since 2000?
He does.
As an Oiler?
Yeah, and most games.
I feel like that warrants...
A little bit.
Yeah, I think
sure.
that.
I just felt like Ekholm...
Isn't he at 2.2 goals against average, something like that?
2.48.
That's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I totally get the argument. I think that if you can only pick one goalie, 2 goalies, right? I feel like Rollison getting there with the team that he had as well.
We squeaked in that Rollison-Pronger effect. We squeaked in last game of the season into the playoffs, and then took out the President Trophy and retired Steve Yzerman Detroit Red Wings in the first round.
It's a hell of an argument because Skinner, like you said, went to the Cup Final last year with this team, and he's only 26. He's done great, but I would have Salo, and I think they did right on this.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.